This episode of Geek's Guide to the Galaxy is made possible thanks to support from listeners like you. So if you enjoyed the show and want it to continue, please support us on Patreon over at patreon.com/geeks or via PayPal over at geeksguideshow.com/crowdfunding. And I want to give a special thank you to Nate Colobus, Nathan Rosenberg, and Patrick Norden, who all just signed up this week to support us on Patreon, and to Katie Fulfer and Jonathan Geloni, who both just increased their pledge amounts. So big thanks again to everyone who's contributed. We really appreciate it. Alright, so now let's get to our show.
Wired.com presents The Geek's Guide to the Galaxy. And here is your host, David Barr Kirtley.
Hello, and welcome to episode 524 of Geek's Guide to the Galaxy. I'm David Barr Kirtley, author of the book Save Me Please and Other Stories, which is available now on Amazon.com. We had a great conversation about the book back in episode 500, so definitely check that out if you missed it. And today on the show we'll be discussing the Predator series, which begins with the 1987 film Predator and continues up through the recent Hulu movie Prey. And this will involve spoilers for everything in the series, so just be aware of that. And I'm joined by three guests. So first up we've got Theresa DeLucci, making her 15th appearance on the show. Her articles have appeared on Boing Boing and Den of Geek, and her short fiction has appeared in Strange Horizons, Weird Horror, Lightspeed, and Tor.com, where she also reviews books, TV, and video games. So Theresa, welcome to the show.
Hello. Oh, you left something out. I ain't got time to bleed.
All right. Then next up, we've got Zach Chapman, making his 12th appearance on the show. His short fiction appears in Nature, Starship Sofa, Tales to Terrify, Steampunk Universe, and Writers of the Future. And he also edited the book Time Travel Tales, which includes stories by Catherine Wells, Sean Williams, and Robert Silverberg. His retro horror comic House of Blood Volume 1 is available now on Kickstarter. So Zach, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Love being on Geek's Guide.
And also joining us today is Stephen Graham Jones, who you may remember from our panel on Final Girls in Horror back in episode 482. He's the author of about 30 books, including Leadfeather, Mongrels, and The Only Good Indians. His audio-only haunted house novel The Babysitter Lives is out now. His comic book Earthdivers will be out from IDW in October, and his novel Don't Fear the Reaper, a sequel to his recent horror novel My Heart is a Chainsaw, will be out in February. So Stephen, welcome to the show.
Man, it's great to be back. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so let's start off with Theresa. So Theresa, how big of a Predator fan are you?
I'd say pretty big. I remember that was one of the very first R-rated movies I ever watched at a way too young age, and it just stuck with me.
So how young were you when you saw it?
Probably 11, because my dad spliced cable illegally into my room so he could watch movies that my mom didn't want to watch. So we learned all about special effects.
So that's cool. So you have like fond memories of the Predator franchise?
Oh, absolutely. Me and my sister used to squish lightning bugs and like put the juice on her cheek, and
Jesus.
we were predators. Like wholesome little girls, you know. Yes. So yes, definitely.
And so so leaving the most recent one aside for a moment, like what do you think just overall of the Predator corpus?
Well, the Predator as a creature is really awesome. The movies are definitely of varying quality. But I have like some of the more recent ones. Maybe more than other people have.
Okay.
But
I guess
yeah, it's fun.
All right, we'll be giving our rankings in a little bit, but let me first get Zach in here too. So Zach, how big of a Predator franchise fan are you?
Probably not so much. Not a huge fan, but like I don't have like a big history of enjoying these movies. I mean, I remember watching them on a little tiny like 6-inch, 7-inch screen on VHS when I was very young, and yeah, I mean, I thought they were cool. I remember the scene in Predators 2 or Predator 2, where the bodies are like hanging from the ceiling and it's like super graphic. Like that is like a core memory, like because that's like really intense. But
like in the drug dealer's penthouse, like that.
Yeah, man. And then also just that spinning disc I thought was super cool when I was young, but nothing really stuck. I think my first memory was actually probably the Dark Horse comics. Like was very young, sitting at in a Barnes and Noble or like a Borders, just looking at those, not reading the comics, but just like flipping through those and being like, this art is amazing. And then from there, like renting the movies, and my parents didn't care. I must have been like 7 or 8 when I was watching those. Yeah, very young. Yeah.
So the comics, I've never read the comics, but this is like Alien vs Predator comics, or?
Well, I did read one I just brushed up. I did read one for the show, and that was a Batman versus Predator, and it was pretty cool. It was written by Dave Gibbons, who's a co-creator on The Watchmen. So it's like it has pedigree, and the Kubert brothers penciled and inked it, and they won a Eisner, which is like pretty prestigious comic award. And that was probably like the early 90s. And it's just,
you were saying you looked at the things you were looking at as a kid. Like, is that?
Yeah,
the Alien vs Predator comics, those are the only ones I've ever really heard of, but I don't know what else there might be.
I think they have like regular Predator comics that Dark Horse had, I believe, and then they had the Versus ones too. So I would have been looking at those omnibuses or those like trades back then, because I don't think they reprint those now. But yeah, I just found it online to look at recently. So
yeah, no, I haven't read the Batman vs Predator, but that sounds cool. I'll have to check that out.
The art is really cool, and Batman creates like a sonic suit, and it looks, I mean, the art's cool. It's a Predator story. Predator's like killing boxers, and Batman's gotta track down who's killing the boxers. Is it other boxers, or is it a Predator alien from outer space?
Well, so then how about Steven? How big of a Predator fan are you?
I like the Predator a lot. Like Theresa was saying, I like the culture, I guess. They're kind of like a mix of, like from Star Trek Voyager, they had the Herodian, if y'all remember them. And back here in our home quadrant, Star Trek had the Klingons. I've always felt like the Predators, the Yautja, whatever we call them, they exist halfway between the Herodian and the Klingon. The Herodian are a hunter society. They are very much like the Predators, but they're not so technology dependent. I kind of think they're actually more honorable hunters than the Predators. But I saw the first Predator in the movie theater. I was 15 years old in Midland, Texas, and it blew my mind because I think this was the first time I'd ever seen an American Indian in a film I went to the cinema for, and Billy Soul, what's his name? Sonny Landham, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
Like that. I saw that movie over and over and over. And then when it came to VHS, I saw it a lot more times just to see him stand on that log and cut across his chest and tell the Predator to bring it. That gave me a lot of heart.
And then what did you like? What about the other Predator movies? Did you watch those, or did you like them? Or
oh yeah, well I've watched them all for sure. Predator 2, I thought the Predator was way too technology dependent, and I really like that. People came up with a word for it, that alien, the xenomorph that's born from the Predator. It's what do they call it, Predalien or something. That hybrid.
Yeah,
I really like that monster because with the Predators, that's what I always want. I'm like, why are you hunting these measly humans? They don't even count as trophies. You should be hunting something really, really that's your equal. And I think the xenomorphs are kind of the Predator's equal.
Or like, if they are going to hunt a human, I feel like they should do it without that fucking shoulder cannon. It makes it too easy.
I know.
It
does. It makes it so easy. I agree.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like watching Predator 2 now, like, like there's all this stuff about how they want to be sporting and everything, but then Bill Paxton is just like shooting the Predator over and over and over and over again, and his bullets have absolutely no effect. So it's kind of like, how sporting is this really?
I know. Like the Predators, they should always like tie one hand behind their back and keep all their technology on the ship.
I feel like that they needed to be a little bit more. This franchise is so inconsistent with like the Predator lore and the Predator rules. And if they had just brushed up some of, like, just pull some of that shit out, and it would be so much cooler. Like, yeah, like we said, like, but you don't need the cannon unless the guy has like a 5, or like the heavy artillery machine gun strapped to his back. That's when you have like the shoulder cannon. There's a scene in Predators where there's like a katana fight, and that was like, oh, okay, like I feel like I get the culture. I feel like this is resonating. This is what Predator should be, where there's like just a sword fight, and he doesn't use any technology. He's just using his claw versus the other guy's katana. That's cool.
Yeah,
that's how it should be.
Cool. Yeah, for sure.
Agreed.
Yeah, totally agree. And it's funny, actually, because if you had asked me a couple weeks ago how big of a Predator fan I was, I would have said, like, oh, yeah, Predator's cool. I remember that from when I was a kid. I like that, But then it turned out, I had completely forgotten this, but John Joseph Adams and I talked about Predator back in episode 34, so almost 500 episodes ago. And I was actually pretty negative. I was like, I don't like Predator that much. I think it's kind of a bad movie. And it was like weird, like just listening to myself say that, because I was like, I don't remember that at all. But apparently we used to have a big debate among our friends in New York City about about which was better, Predator or Predator 2. And I was on the Predator 2 side, although I hadn't watched it at that point in like 20 years or something. And then I went back and watched it, and I was like, okay, Predator 2 is definitely not better than Predator 1.
But maybe it's more fun. Maybe.
Well, the thing that really stuck in my mind that I really liked about it was how the government has this whole team of people, and they've figured out that the Predator sees in infrared, and so they have these insulated suits, and they have ultraviolet lights, and they're putting dust in the air. Like all that stuff, I just thought was so cool. The sort of science.
It's kind of like set up for Underworld, the vampires and werewolf stuff. How they have like ultraviolet bullets and all those little tricks to hurt each other. I feel like all those tricks the government had was prelude to that.
Yeah. So like actually, and watching Predator 2 now, I actually think it gets pretty good around the time of that subway massacre I mentioned. But a lot of the stuff leading up to that, like the characters are just so over the top, and the and sort of like gross and cartoonish and stuff. And so I don't know. So Theresa, how do you feel about Predator 2?
Well, like you, I hadn't really watched it in a very, very, very long time. In fact, I think my mom actually did really like Predator 2. That was like her favorite one, because I said, oh, I'm going to be on this podcast. I'm watching all these Predator movies again. She's like, oh, 2 was really fun in Los Angeles. But the cast was amazing. I think I didn't appreciate how awesome the list of names were on there. I mean, Ruben Blades and Bill Paxton, Danny Glover, and Gary Busey. I mean, come on, like that is kind of classic for an 80s movie. He brings an energy. So it was fun, but it was ridiculous too. I mean, that over the top opening shootout in the streets of Los Angeles. I agree. Like for me, it didn't really get good until the subway scene. Like I thought that scene on its own was really, really fun. And I'm just sitting here thinking like, oh God, that's about all New York City needs on the subway right now. Friggin' Predator. Oh my God.
Doesn't Lethal Weapon have Danny Glover and Gary Busey in it as well?
I think so. I mean,
yeah, it does.
That Shane Black, tradition going on into all these different 80s action franchises is pretty incredible, actually.
Yeah, maybe we should just explain for our listeners who might not know. So Shane Black is one of the commandos. He's one of the actors. He's one of the commandos in the original Predator. And then he actually went on to be one of the most high-profile screenwriters of the 80s, maybe.
So apparently he was... I read this article, The Oral History of the Predator, which is totally worth checking out if you're into this franchise. And I believe he was brought on to or at least they say there were, accounts that said he was brought on to do some script passes on the original Predator movie, and he was like, no, I'm an actor. I'm gonna be in this movie, and kind of just made him like forced himself into a role in the movie, and he dies pretty quickly. He's like the first guy on the team to die.
I didn't know you could do that. They're like, we'd like you to write the script for this movie. And you're like, actually, I'd prefer to just be in the movie. And they're like, okay, sure. I'll have to try
does that oral history document Jean-Claude Van Damme be in there?
Yes. So Jean-Claude Van Damme was originally cast as the Predator. And there's like a bunch of conflicting reasons as to why he wasn't, ultimately in the Predator movie.
Yeah.
What one was say like he was fired for being too short, which is like the article said he's 5'6", which is significantly, compared to Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's like, come on, you can't have like some guy, and then there was also that people were saying like he was being a dick or he's being ornery. He didn't want to wear the suit because, he's Jean-Claude Van Damme. There's an account that he broke like a $20,000 ant head. Like originally it was going to be like an ant creature. And he was like, this is stupid, and threw the helmet on the ground. And those are all like firsthand accounts, and they're all conflicting. So, I guess like pick which one you think.
So maybe
is the
we
coolest.
have Jean-Claude Van Damme to thank for the cool Predator helmet. Because he broke the first one and they had to make another one.
He made a good call in breaking an ant head.
Yeah, I mean, because then they stopped filming for like 8 months, right? And went back and redesigned the creature because they had to rethink the whole suit and how big the guy was going to be inside of it. And yeah, I believe like Stan Winston was on a plane with like James Cameron or something, and that's how he kind of got brought on to do the creature design, which I think, Stan Winston is just like one of the best practical effects guys of all time.
Yeah.
And it shows.
Apparently the original suit was causing Jean-Claude Van Damme to pass out. And they were like, you can't pass out. Like you can't be this creature and be passing out all the time. So
maybe that's not. Maybe history is being unkind to Jean-Claude Van Damme. Like, would you want to wear a suit like that all day?
In the well, that's like part of what makes that first movie like really cool. I don't think I would like that movie so much as if it was just filmed in a studio like in LA or whatever, or it just like wouldn't be the same as them like being in Mexico and like shooting off a bunch of fireworks and like getting like super sweaty and in like actual wilderness probably, and getting ant bites and shit,
Yeah, and doing the manliest handshake ever.
I forgot that meme came from Predator, and then seeing it again, thinking, "Oh shit, that's where it's from." It's from that. Like that makes it even better.
Although actually,
Carl Weathers.
Actually, though, speaking of filming locations, so I'm watching Predators, which is basically the third movie in this sequence, depending on whether you count the Alien vs. Predators movie or not.
Yeah.
But anyway, so there's this scene where they go over a waterfall and land in this, sort of pond or pool or something and climb out, and then they have this conversation on the bank among the rocks. And Zach, did you recognize that?
No, is that here?
Yeah,
is that in Austin?
It's Hamilton Pool, in Austin.
Oh, sick.
Wow.
and I recognize, and I haven't been there, but I've just looked at pictures. I'm planning to go there soon, hopefully. But I was like, that's Hamilton Pool. I recognize that. And I looked it up, and it was like, Robert Rodriguez produced it.
Right.
And so he's like part of the whole Austin film scene.
Yeah.
So
wow. I'm surprised it's so good if he produced it. I really like Predators. I think it's like the underdog of the Predator franchise.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that, when we get into ranking, that one for me is very high.
Yeah, so that's where they get like taken to that planet to be sport hunted, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, because I remembered it being surprisingly good, but the ending being a little weak. And watching it now, it's like, wow, this is actually really, really good. I was better than I was expecting it to be based on my memories. I still think the ending is a little weak. But I was like, this is actually, this is good. I mean, so Zach, what do you like about Predators?
Okay, so the premise is just awesome. It's the Predators, a batch of them, like 3 Predators, take the most dangerous humans. And some aliens, and when I say aliens, I'm not xenomorphs. They're just like some random aliens. And they stick them on like a hunting preserve, and they just start. And they give them weapons. Again, like the cool part of reading into the Predator's nature and the Predator's culture is like, I like it when they give them an honorable fight. And this movie was full of that. Like they give all of these, warriors, these like dangerous humans. Some of them are like, there's like a serial killer, and there's like, CIA operatives, and like, the FBI's most wanted, and a Yakuza guy, and give them their weapons and then have at them. Like, let's go hunt them down. And that premise alone is really fucking cool. And then the execution is totally solid. Like it has a budget. It is directed competently. It has everything, like the designs of the Predators, which, from is always awesome, from the first movie. So it's just, I liked it. I dig it.
Yeah. So I'll say my issue with the ending is and again, spoiler warning, but so it's this group of like hardened killers, and then there's this sort of nerdy guy who says he's a doctor who seems out of place. And then it turns out that he's a serial killer. And, but the problem I have is that he sort of like reveals himself, like, he like basically tries to kill Alice Braga, who's this like badass IDF soldier, like while they're being hunted by predator monsters, and doesn't make any sense at all. So I think it would have been cool if they had killed all the predators and then he tries to kill them. And I actually think it would have been kind of cool if he succeeded. And then the ending is just like him, the serial killer. He's killed everyone, and then like the next group of people are parachuting in, and he's like, "Help! Help! You have to help me! I'm this helpless nerdy guy." And and it would be like a different kind of predator, like this idea that this sociopath, manipulative liar can be the most deadly person on this planet, even more so than the aliens or the soldiers and all that kind of stuff.
That's nice because it doesn't come down to muscles and technology. It comes down to what you said. It's the ability to weasel into your trust.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a skill. It's a survival skill for him.
Yeah.
So
that would be nice.
Theresa, you have any memories of, or did you just rewatch Predators, or?
Yeah, I rewatched Predators because I remembered that one pretty fondly because I love Walton Goggins. Like everything that he does, he's just a standout. And a lot of times he plays a very similar character. But I mean, he was so good on Justified that I'm like, oh, he's in the new Predator movie with Adrian Brody, who is also an amazing actor. I remember enjoying it when it came out and thought it was really fun. Like I felt the Predator franchise, maybe like the Alien franchise as well, works best when it's just a simple character drama of survival, and it's in this little bubble of the jungle, the preserved planet. Mm-hmm. And I think that's when the Predator for me works best. It's like you've got to care about the characters a little bit, and I'm less concerned with the lore and more like lore in smaller numbers. Like
I want to piggyback. I feel so strongly about like what you're saying is like what I was thinking throughout all of these movies, is that the core is don't fucking exposit any lore. I don't care about the lore. I don't want to be in the POV of the hunter ever, or the predator ever. Like I want to be in the POV of these characters that are being hunted and them slowly learning about this monster and through trial and error. So like, like with Dracula, the cool thing about Predator is like they're learning. And like with Dracula and all these monsters, there's always like a Van Helsing that comes in and is like, okay, here's how you kill the monster. Here are the rules to the monster. But with the Predator, they're slowly learning, gaining information on how to fight back through trial and error, through people getting killed or people surviving. And that's what's really cool. And anytime they start trying to get into the lore of like, oh, this predator is like trying to save this human, or this predator is trying to, when they really get into like explaining it without like just hinting at it from our perspective, like from like a human's perspective, that's when it gets off the rails. I don't care about that. I don't want to know about their spaceships or what's going on their planet. I can infer all the cool cultural things by what they're doing and how they're hunting. And like, oh, this person's not armed, then I'm not killing them. Like those little like subtle details, that's what's cool.
Yeah, I agree. And the dynamic I like about all the Predator stories pretty much is it's that old Superman dynamic of how do we even the scales so we can actually compete against this monster, this bad person. Like with Superman, nobody can beat him toe to toe. So you always got to give him red kryptonite or green kryptonite or hold Lois Lane hostage or do stuff like that to like weaken his might, I guess. And with the Predator, it's always about let's take his helmet away, let's take away that wrist thing. I forget what it's called. And if you can ever get the Predator down to without his or her technology, I guess his technology, and then like Schwarzenegger, you can rig up tree bombs and all that kind of stuff, and you like it to be even, or you like it to not be unfair, anyways.
Yeah, well, I definitely agree that these movies work better when they're stripped down, and the worst ones, which in my estimation are Alien vs. Predator, Requiem, and The Predator, and to an extent Predator 2, suffer from just like too many characters, too much shit going on, too much lore in exposition and stuff, and I can really, it would be interesting to graph like what the relationship is between number of characters who have speaking lines versus quality of these movies, but it seems to me it's got to be an pretty strong inverse correlation there.
Well,
nice. What I like. Oh, go on, Teresa.
Oh no, I was just gonna say what I really enjoyed about rewatching the first Predator, because it has been many, many years, was how well it stood up of like just watching this group of guys and the stress that they're under and how they react to the stress and how they react to each other under this stress and their friendships and pre-existing relationships and loyalty. Like stuff like that, like the real human drama when faced with this adversary, I thought was absolutely fantastic. And I think that's why it still holds up. That and all the amazing one-liners. I don't think any of them had as good one-liners as that movie. Like the first Predator had the best ones, and that's why all these different sequels keep trying to call back to some of these famous lines.
Yeah,
and
stop.
Doesn't always work. Doesn't really work.
Yeah, you're right. The first Predator had the best one-liners, but I wonder if that was just a function of the 80s, because it seems like the 80s got by on those catchphrases, and nowadays it's like we're too ironically distanced from everything to allow those on screen anymore.
In the Predator was the 2018 one. They tried to shoehorn in like spins on quotes on like one-liners from the first movie, and there's this scene where there's a doctor, and she's, or like a scientist, and she's seeing the Predator for the first time, and instead of saying "you're one ugly motherfucker," she says, which is what Arnold Schwarzenegger says when he finally sees its face, she says, "you're one beautiful motherfucker." And it's like, this should be fucking illegal. This is so bad. And then there's like the most contrived scene just to get this line. Like it serves no other fucking purpose than to just get this line. There's just a bunch of motorcycles, and there's like a fight scene or whatever happening. Who cares? And they're like, get to the choppers, because a famous line in the first one is him saying, get to the chopper. And I'm just like, I fucking hate this movie. I hate the writing of this movie.
Oh god,
It's
yeah.
painful.
Yeah, I mean, I hated like even like in Prey, or like there were a couple that were reasonably tasteful, the callbacks, but like it just takes me out of the movie so much when they're just quoting a line from the earlier movie. I wish they would refrain from doing that altogether. But the Predator, we should say too, is Shane Black. You know, like the actor we mentioned from the original Predator. They brought him back in 2018 to sort of do his version of it, and it's a complete train wreck in my opinion. And it's interesting because, you know, I had said, like, in my earlier, back in episode 34, I was like, oh, these movies are kind of weak, you know, Predator 2, like Predators, etc. But then, like, in comparison to The Predator or Alien vs. Predator Requiem, even Alien vs. Predator, I rewatched it and I was like, wow, in contrast to some of these other ones, this one actually isn't half bad. You know, but like those really, The Predator and Aliens vs. Predator Requiem like really skews the curve way down.
The Predator is it's a shame because it drips with budget. It's like, it has an enormous budget. The movie looks beautiful, but like 1 second it's this super violent science fiction horror movie where you're seeing like dudes' insides just dripping like visceral gore out of their, you know, getting cut in half and stuff. And then like the next scene is like some PG Goosebumps episode of like an 8-year-old getting a hold of a predator mask on Halloween and going trick-or-treating. It's so fucking ridiculous. There's like a predator dog that joins the party of heroes, and like
god.
it's so tonally bananas.
It feels like the Fast and the Furious. Like it's not a horror. There's no like horror or tension, or it's just like that's what it feels like to me. So I feel like I just watched a Fast and Furious 9, and somehow for some reason there are aliens in it or something.
It could be plausible with the amount of sequels that The Rock goes to outer space, and I would still pay to see that because you know what you're getting with the Fast and the Furious movies, and I find those actually really fun.
The Fast and Furious did go to space, didn't they? They sent that little Pontiac. What's that? That Fiero? Is that the name of it? They sent it to orbit.
That is true. I mean, it's I don't know. Like the Predator, like I knew it was going to be bad because it starred Thomas Jane and Olivia Munn, and that's just like the hallmark. And sometimes Thomas Jane is amazing in movies. Like I loved him in The Mist. Like he's good on like the HBO series. I liked him as the first Punisher. I thought he was way awesome in that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I love him in The Expanse.
Oh yeah, which I haven't seen yet. So I definitely should watch that. But in here, I'm like, okay, he's not really the star. And then they introduce him, and he has Tourette's, and I'm like, he's making a joke, right, to make this guy like uncomfortable or something. Oh no, they're really playing it like he has Tourette's. Oh, this is terrible. Like everything about this movie is, I mean, the way they talk about autistic children, like
autism as a superpower. He can read the maps or whatever. That it's like a superhero movie. Like he, for some reason, because he's autistic, he understands the Predator language and can just use the Predator helmet.
And like the whole thing, like it just cracks me up. Like the end, like the post end credit scene, whatever, when they go and travel, like, oh, the Predator left a gift for you all. It's a suit. And he visits his own child in the military institution, just working in the basement. And it's like, oh yeah, I'll tell your mom you said hi. So I'm like, wait, this 8-year-old kid is just like living in a military compound, like working for them, and his
separated
mom,
from his mom. Yeah.
And he's not like with his mom or anybody. I'm like,
wait, let me ask you guys. So in this movie, we find out that the Predators take people's spines because they want to like sample their DNA to improve their. Did this movie introduce that, or was that ever introduced in some comic book or something? Does anyone have any idea?
As far as I know, the movie's where it started, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that seems really unnecessary when you've already got like their head and skull and everything. Is it like a sippy straw? Like, that's how I'm going in my canon. That's what it is. They use the spines as like a sippy straw, and that's how they get the DNA. It goes right in their little mandibles.
It's like lore. It's just like, we don't want that. We don't need any lore. We just want to see the fighting. We want to see the hunting. But like, no, you got to shoehorn in some like weird ass, they're trying to make themselves better. Like, I don't want to know that. Like, and they do that. They like, there was Predators versus Predators in that movie where there was like a good predator and that
once
just
they get
seems so
desperate,
ridiculous.
These franchises always introduce the good guy version of the bad guy. Like, I'm thinking of Alien Resurrection and the hybrid with that twitchy little adorable nose like a puppy dog. I'm like, why? We don't need that from the xenomorph, and we don't need it from the Predator. For me, being able to peek into the ship in Predators 2, like when Danny Glover goes in there and you see like the alien skull, which was really, I think originally just kind of like a little Easter egg nod, like set dressing. That to me is like enough of a spark of an imagination. Like, that's all I need to know. I don't need 4 sequels with alien predator hybrids and, to varying degrees of fun. But it's like, I don't want to know that. That's not what the story is about. It's about what the people do to get out of this shitty situation. And
we don't want the it's like the series, the franchise didn't learn from X-Files that we like Monster of the Week. We don't like the mythos or conspiracy ones, we just want the running and gunning.
Yeah, well, I mean, as a writer, maybe I'm less judgmental of these movies now than I was 10 years ago, because I'm kind of like, this is a really sort of formidable challenge to when you get to movie number 7 about these monsters that don't talk. It's like, because the first time around, it's a big mystery. Or like, wait, are they like, what are their abilities? Like, they can camouflage. They like are always recording people and playing back their voices, and they see an infrared and all this stuff. And you're sort of figuring out what they are, and then you see, that they take off the mask and you see the face and everything. But once that's all established, like 7 movies later, like, how do you? And they don't really talk particularly. That is a really big creative challenge, it seems to me.
It is.
Well,
I totally agree.
So there's this meme going around, which is basically like, well, how do you do that? And it's like, all right, well, just do it in different time areas. Do it in feudal Japan. Do it in during the
I'd love to see it in Sparta, like ancient Sparta against like the 300.
And you could, and they
something
could,
like that would be amazing.
They may have different rules, right? So like, if they're fighting against Spartans, for instance, maybe they're not using cloaking devices or any armor because that's not honorable, and the Spartans don't use those things either. So maybe they fight naked or something. So you could riff off of that, and you could make new rules, but you wouldn't need to add lore, right? You don't need to say, hey, we're collecting human skulls or whatever, like, or even that we're hunting humans. Like, we fucking get that from the premise of the movie, from what's happening on screen. Don't explain it. Just throw us in the situation and add 1, 2, 3 like little riffs on it. Okay, well, now the predator's acting this way, or now the predator's based off the predator's actions, that fuels like the interest and like the mystery of like how to defeat it, not like this political thing that this predator's trying to save humans, or this predator's trying to affect global warming, or some weird ass thing like that. Like, I don't know. Yeah. That's my take.
Well, maybe we should bring Prey into this at this point. So this is the most recent movie on Hulu. So Stephen, just overall thoughts on Prey?
It's my favorite Predator movie. I liked it a whole lot, especially in Comanche.
Yeah. See, I was just doing research today, and I watched just the English version, and I totally would have watched the Comanche version if I had realized that was an option.
Yeah, it's funny. About 4 years ago, a friend and I, I'll probably not tell you who it is. We were getting to go to Ice Age North American story where a hunter like the Predator comes down and it's a big fight like Prey. But I'm glad we didn't see it to its end, because I think Prey was better than I would have done anyways. I didn't have any reservations about Prey. I liked it. The only part that bummed me out was that the Predator cheated when it fought the bear and kept using that cloaking stuff, and I thought I would like to see them go muscle for muscle, claw for tooth and everything. But so it did beat the bear, but I don't think it beat the bear fairly.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll just explain if anyone listening doesn't know. So this new movie, the premise is it's set in North America in the early 1700s. And basically, you have these Comanche warriors, and the main character is a young woman, a young Comanche woman who wants to be seen as taken seriously as a warrior, and faces sort of discrimination. But she ends up basically through her strategic thinking and smarts being the one who really takes on this predator. I thought it was terrific. I mean, like the vistas and the costumes and the creature effects, like all that stuff, I thought was, of the Predator, I thought was really, really just beautiful to look at. I mean, I had a couple criticisms we could maybe go into, but how about Theresa? What'd you think of Prey?
Oh, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was, like you said, really stunning to look at, the landscapes. I did watch the Comanche dub. And I'd be kind of curious to watch the English as well to see if there were differences in some of the dialogue. Because some of it did feel a little like anachronistic in a way. And I was just wondering, something like, oh, I'm sorry, that's some crazy shit, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that like took me out of it just a little bit. But overall, again, like, going back to a simple story, well told. And I love the creature design of, like, they call it like the feral predator or whatever, because it's so far in the past, like its helmet is different. It looks a little like narrower. I liked her brother a lot. And I love the dog. The people I watched it with, they made me check, does the dog die? .com or whatever before we could watch this, so that didn't kill tension for me. In fact, it made it better for me because I was less concerned. So like, I was less concerned about the dog, but I thought it was hilarious that it's like, oh, the dog doesn't die, but literally every other animal you will see on set will, not the dog.
Yeah, even that hawk gets it.
I know. I was just like, every animal, like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, so how about Zach? Thoughts on Prey?
Oh, it's definitely my favorite Predator film, and I think it's the only one in the franchise that has a theme, or at least commits to a theme in like a meaningful way. And the action is super awesome, and the budget seems like it was just really, really well spent, because I think this feels like the lowest budget of the franchise. And I just think it was really well. I mean, it's straight to Hulu, right? It didn't even go into theaters. Right. All of these other movies like went to theaters. And I think it just goes to show that you can have a Shane Black budget and totally shit the bed, and then you can have this really small budget with a smaller cast and really nail it. And there's still, I mean, the action is still pretty like awesome looking. I think my only like nitpick is the design of the face. Once I love the helmet, but once the helmet gets knocked off, like I think the face looks a little derpy, and it is very CG, and that like it hurts because we're so used to the amazing, very, very, now I'm sure very, very expensive like animatronics, like, you know, effects.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was a little jarring. Like the CGI was definitely really apparent in a lot of the fights, which, you know, it's neither here nor there. You know, how else are you going to have a predator fight a wolf or a bear?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
like you're going to
yeah,
need it.
yeah.
So sometimes it just looked a little much, but again, it was like
Yeah.
in the service of the story. You know, I would say Prey is probably my second favorite though. Like I still love the original. Just the nostalgia factor, you know, the one-liners and stuff, but I enjoyed bringing, you know, a female lead into it. I thought that was really cool, nice to see. So, you know, something different. Let's do something different. Plus the first Predator movie, like I honestly believe that the only thing scarier to those dudes in the military there, scarier than the Predator, is a vagina. Like, because of all, like, what I didn't catch as like a little girl watching the movie was all of the horrible, dirty jokes that one guy tells, which become kind of a theme in some of the follow-up movies. I'm like, man, they are really afraid of vaginas here. So it was kind of satisfying, you know, in a way that the xenomorph and like the alien movies are also. But on like that flip side, like Predator's like hyper masculine franchise. So it felt good to see a woman in the lead and outsmarting the monster.
Yeah,
You know, Arnold Schwarzenegger was the final girl of Predator. You know,
yeah, I'm sort of torn on whether I think that Prey is better than Predator. I mean, like, because Predator, rewatching it now, it's like, yeah, this is actually really good. I mean, my issues with Predator is that, like, I think that the commando raid at the beginning is kind of corny. And it bugs me that the characters often do things that, like, aren't very smart or don't really make sense. But other than that, I think it's really good. And then Prey, I think, is terrific. Like, my problems or my, you know, complaints are really pretty minor. I mean, like, yeah, like the CGI bear looked a little weird. You know, I thought most of the action was really cool, but sometimes it was a little too Matrixy, and I would have liked it to be just a little bit more grounded in reality. When the French trappers showed up, they seemed a little bit like from a different movie, like from a Terry Gilliam movie or something like that. But
well, I was thinking like The Revenant, so I thought that was like a nice surprise to bring him in. You know,
I like. So one thing that seems like core to all of these movies is like the human conflict between, like, there's a humans are fighting each other, and then the Predator comes in and like starts killing people on both sides. And I think Prey did it the best. It's like, and there were multiple conflicts. Like, there are the trappers that's like where it really climaxed. But before that, you know, she's fighting against her, like, the, you know, sexist, misogynistic assholes in her tribe. And it's a cool, it's like, it's a good conflict. It's not like contrived. So that's why I feel like thematically it's stronger than any of the other Predator movies. Like it just works really well.
Yeah, you know, talking about the French trappers, watching it on Hulu in my living room, it took me like 10 minutes longer than its runtime to watch it because I can read French, but I can't read it fast. So I kept having to pause each subtitle to read the French to figure out what they were saying, you know? I couldn't have done that in the theater, so I don't know if that's better or worse, actually.
Yeah, and I can't read French at all. So in those scenes, I was kind of like, well, I mean, what more do I need to know? They're French trapper assholes who are killing all the buffalo and screwing over the Comanche. So
I don't need Predator lore. I don't need French lore.
Yeah, I don't need French. Yeah. I'm like, because that's where, you know, your sympathies are with the Comanche. They're with Naru.
Yeah. Okay, so Zach, where do you come down on? Do you think this is the best?
Yeah,
the best.
I like Prey the best. Actually, like, I'm kind of mid on the earlier Predator movies. Like, I think the first Predator is pretty dated, and the second Predator is fun. It's like more dated in some ways, but definitely Prey is my favorite, and then I like Predators, and then Predator and Predator 2, and then The Predator. And I don't know about those Alien versus Predator movies. I don't know if we even count those.
I mean, I think they're definitely at the bottom. Actually, I don't know if I might even hate The Predator more than I hate Alien versus Predator now that I think about it.
But it was so bad.
But so you put Predators above the original Predator.
I mean, I get that that's probably like a super hot take, but just personally, like from like just enjoying a movie, I think it has better action.
No, I can totally see. I can totally see that. Yeah.
It's the first Predator. Honestly, is like it's. I'm not into those like 80s movies. I was born in 90, so like I don't have like this super like nostalgia for those kinds of movies. So like the one-liners are just kind of whatever to me. And you know, there's a lot of kind of slow. That movie's like an hour and 45 minutes, and a lot of it's dudes fucking walking through a jungle. It's like, you know, or just long scenes of dudes unloading clips into the jungle. And then the effect of the Predator going invisible is so dated, cheesy, awful. I hate it so much that it's like, it brings it down a little bit for me. Just as like, you know, being a millennial, being a young buck, I'm like, I can't, this movie's dated for sure.
Okay. No, I mean, that's totally, I mean, does anyone strongly disagree that Predator, do people generally think that Predators and Predator are kind of like around the same level, or does anyone feel very strongly that one is better than the other?
Oh, no, I agree. I think up until Prey, I think Predators was the second best in the franchise.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
And I do agree, like, you know, Predators definitely had a more modern sensibility and more varied cast. Like the characters were different. They were all, you know, came from different cultures, came from different, you know, backgrounds and fighting styles, which made it interesting and fun. But I don't know, just for me, like the first Predator, it is so classic. And I was surprised that Arnold Schwarzenegger's character was kind of like the good guy in it, when you think of him as like this hyper masculine guy. And they all are. They're all like really jacked up, which feels like they seem almost a little small compared to today's like Jason Momoa's. And, you know, like it's really fascinating to watch like how that action movie star form for men has changed.
Yeah, it is. And you know, Schwarzenegger or Dutch, he wasn't the good guy as long as he was part of the American military machine. But once the American military or the CIA was working against him and like straining him out there, then he could become a good guy, I think.
Yeah, because he was concerned about like his team and his people.
Yeah,
like he had a loyalty to them, which I thought was surprising and nice.
Yeah. You know what I'm waiting for in some Predator movie is that Shaun of the Dead trick where like in Shaun of the Dead, they act like zombies so they can move among the dead. You know, I'm waiting for people to dress up and get dreadlocks and all that stuff and see if they can move among predators. I think that'd be fun.
There was actually, okay, I don't know if anyone rewatched Alien vs. Predator or remembers it that well, but there's a scene where there's a guy, you know, with one of the sort of disposable security guys from the surface is lying at the bottom of this ice shaft in the Antarctic, clearly about to freeze to death, and the predators come up and kill him. And I'm like, come on, wait. If you're covered with mud, they can't see you, but if you're like freezing to death in the Antarctic, they can. Like, that makes no sense at all. So I just want to note that.
Yeah, that's funny.
Does anyone have, we don't have to spend a lot of time on Alien vs. Predator, but I'm just curious if anyone had anything they wanted to say about either of those.
I think I remember watching both of those in like middle school or high school. Like they came out in a time where I went to the theater like every single Friday and would watch like 2 movies back to back, just because like there was nothing to do in New Braunfels, Texas, other than just go to the theater. And I remember, and I loved like every movie that came out. And I just remember not liking those movies back then. So I was like, when you were like, you can watch them, you can rewatch them. And I was like, yeah, I didn't even like those back then. I can't imagine how much I would dread watching them now.
You know, I have fond memories of actually the Alien versus Predator video game that was for, I think maybe Sega Dreamcast. This is how old it was. Maybe PlayStation 1. It's kind of getting fuzzy. But you could choose to play as either a colonial marine, a xenomorph, or a predator. And in the beginning, you could only play as like the marine or the alien because you had like limited abilities. But then once you unlock the Predator, you become this like unstoppable machine. And it was a wonderful, immersive story, like this first person perspective of like, oh, I'm the xenomorph. Like I have like tail sting and fight, and my goal is to make eggs. Like the humans, like I'm fucked. Like I gotta fight everybody. And then the Predator is just like hunting and whispering through the halls. And it had all these cool like Weyland-Yutani jokes. Like it was better than the movies for sure. Probably the best movie tie-in video game until like Pitch Black Escape from Butcher Bay came out. That's all I gotta say about that.
You know what? I remember watching those. I've watched each of them only one time, I guess, but they had the same draw to me that all the pay-per-view wrestling events had in the movies. You know, like let's watch Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant or whatever, which is really like, what if Thor fought Silver Surfer? What if Jason fought Freddy? We love those kind of like dream matchups, and so I was really appreciative that the two like badasses of the world, the Predators and the Aliens, were going head to head. You know, that was cool. I do think that it did get kind of weighed down with backstory. That didn't the Predators like create the aliens or something like that, or the Xenomorphs?
See, I'm that's what when I was a kid, that's what people always told me, is that the Predator in the comic books, I think that the Predators had created the Xenomorphs to be the ultimate prey. But then I was I watched a bunch of YouTube videos just this morning, and I swear they said something different about.
Oh, okay, all right.
I don't remember, but I think it was I think it tied into Prometheus somehow, and like somehow the Xenomorphs were created to like kill, you know, like if species leave their own planets and try to go out into space and spread too much, the Xenomorphs are there to keep the population down and keep people on their own planets or something.
I don't want to know that about the Xenomorphs either.
Yeah. Exactly.
Now, was Alien versus Predator, or was it like Jason versus Freddy? I just always remember this movie tagline from the poster, like, whoever wins, we lose.
Yeah.
And I remember that being like a really good one.
I think that was
really
Alien versus
like
Predator.
on multiple levels, we lose.
I know. My God.
Well, so do you guys think that this? Well, I mean, I think the big problem with the Alien vs. Predator movies, both of them, is that there's just too many human characters who are not interesting, and you know where it should be, like Steven's saying, this showdown between aliens, you know, that gets reduced to like, you know, like a 5-minute fight scene somewhere in the movie, and then the rest of it is
at the
just...
climax, it's terrible.
Well, and I remember them being poorly shot, poorly lit. Like when they actually fight, it's like close-ups, quick shots, and like what the hell is happening? So you know, it's not even like the thing that you come there to. The thing that I wanted to see was just over quick, and it was done terribly. You know, is that
I know. Yeah, and I had high hopes, especially for the first one, because it was directed by the same guy who did Event Horizon, which was amazing. Well, you know, I'm sure probably dated a little bit, but yeah, I mean, that was
Paul W.S. Anderson is the
Paul. Yeah, not the other one.
Wow, he's made many more bad movies than he's made good movies.
I know, but it still gets him. You know, it gets me to press play on the streaming sometimes.
Yeah, but you know that fast cut fight scene stuff, which is kind of annoying. It seems like that was a mode back then. You know, like I remember a Benicio del Toro movie with Tommy Lee Jones. I think was it The Hunted, maybe that they did. That's the first time I saw that, and it's kind of like a version of whenever you see a 5'6" character on the basketball court in a movie and they're about to dunk, you see them jump and then it cuts to them dunking. You know, it's that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think now there's more of a directorial like awareness, like since like those raid movies and like since kung fu movies I feel like those movies got popular more recently here, and like they're like, well, what if we just let the choreographers do their thing, and like who cares if you can tell that like people aren't getting punched? You can definitely tell people aren't getting punched if you cut the scene to shit, you know? I think it's just like people are a little bit more aware of it now, so directors are more cognizant of like, I don't want to just cut this to shit. I want to actually show people moving through, through their choreography and their fight.
Yeah, I mean, this might be a little too like artsy or something. I don't know, but it would be interesting if there was just an Alien vs Predator movie where it was like there's no humans in it at all, and there's like no dialogue, right? Because neither of them talk really, and it's you just see it's just like almost a silent movie where there's just like a Predator character and you're following him trying to survive against aliens or something like that. That could be
that'd
pretty
be
cool.
a cool like animated feature. I think
it would
be like a really good like anime like. Yeah, get artsy with it. Why not? Like, have fun. Like, it's a concept like at its core that really works. So, I think that's what's resonating about Prey is that it's showing it in a new situation, a new face, and like, it gives it new life and makes it fun. Like, just makes it fun again.
I'd like to see something in a movie like that or in a story like that where. Like we've seen the xenomorph skulls on the Predator ships, and it seems like xenomorph bone matter must be super, super tough because it can live in acid blood, And so I'd love to see a Predator carve a knife from that and use only that knife against the xenomorph. That'd be cool.
Some of the coolest scenes in the Predator franchise is them like fiddling with their technology. Like in the first movie, he gets cut and he cauterizes. I think it's in the first movie. Like he like cauterizes wounds. He's like shrinking or like freeze drying skulls and things like that. And that's all like there's no dialogue. And I say like fuck the lore. It's like that is how you do the lore. Like you don't explain shit. You just show it. And if there was a movie, if that was like a lean like hour 20 minutes and we're just following a Predator doing shit like that to survive, like through multiple alien attacks, cauterizing his wounds and doing all that kind of stuff with the weird technology in his gauntlet. And, that would be really cool. That's some of the coolest parts in the current franchise. So
yeah, no, I totally agree. I just got to write a Predator story for an anthology and it was really fun to play in the Predator world, but they gave me a little really thin Bible of all the different terms for all the tools and weapons and spaceships and all that. And I use none of it, of course, because I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in that kind of stuff. I'm interested. My story is, and I'm not trying to sell the story to the audience or anything. It's the Predator on his ship between hunts, which that was the interesting part to me. I've seen the Predator hunt so many times and I'm not really interested in them running down prey anymore, but I am interested in after the hunt.
Yeah, so actually, I mean, I read the story. I think I sent the link. I don't know if Zach,
I read it. I read it too. Yeah.
But it's called "The Distance in Their Eyes," and it's in the book called "Predator: Eyes of the Demon." Is there anything more to say, Stephen, about just like how did that come about, or anything like that?
They just got hold of me, and I think for that same publisher, I had just written a Conan story, and so they knew that I will sometimes play in other franchises. And
wow, Conan story, nice.
Oh, that's the dream, and so it was really fun, and it took a lot of convincing to get me to do it because I didn't want to do like Dutch in the Jungle, that didn't seem fun at all to me, and so I told them I'll do it, but I'm not gonna give the Predator story that we've seen before. Yeah.
Did they give you a word count? Like, did you have to do it like in under 3,000 words? Or anything?
No. Oh, there may have been a cap, but I wasn't concerned with it. I knew I was telling a little short thing,
Did you like do any sort of? Did you go back and watch the movies or anything, or you just kind of dove into it?
I think just as luck would have it, I had recently queued up Predator. I think for one of my kids because they had not seen it, and I thought they needed to have a proper education. So we had watched it.
So I'm
cool
curious,
dads,
I'm curious how long that Bible is because what what is really cool is like having all of these massive like rules and descriptions and why, but like not explaining it, right? You need to know, like the writer needs to know all that shit. It needs to be written out and understood, but then from there, paring it down, really stripping it back when you're telling the actual story. So I'm curious as to like how big is that Bible and like what does it get into their culture or their home planet or anything like that?
I think I think I didn't even get a PDF. I think it was on some online space, and I didn't even page through it all. I needed I needed one or two names, and then I think I erased them. So
Yeah, no, I noticed you were like using like you say like it like you didn't use like specific words like you like he'd scan this or like so I like that approach, because then you're not saying like he used his blah 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 and like dropping all these like proper nouns or whatever, and like it's like nah.
I will say though, Zach, that I as I said, I was watching all these like YouTube videos and stuff the last 24 hours, and I mean there's a ton of stuff out there if you want Predator lore. Like I swear there's a video I watched, it's called something like Complete Guide to All 38 Predator Species, and it's like, I think it's like 50 minutes long or maybe something like that, and it's just like it just goes through like and this is all I think from comic books and video games and stuff, but it's just like there was like this guy, this Predator leader, and he killed this one and took over, and then like there's like the alien, like the xenomorph king and the xenomorph, like it's just like it's like crazy how much stuff.
You're giving me like flashback. I was at a gaming shop once in San Antonio. I was just minding my own business, playing like a tabletop game with a friend, like a skirmish style game. And some guy walked up to me and did that like I'm like playing this game with a guy, and he's like, yeah, Predator and Alien, and like this is this and this is this, and I was like, holy shit, dude, I'm playing fucking Star Wars X-Wing here. What is happening? But yeah, like I don't know. I feel like it's cool to like, I don't know. Is it cool? Maybe. Like I feel like the less you know, the better. But yeah, like obviously the writers have to know all this stuff. Like they have to build that story. But I don't know. It's just not that interesting. Like the lore.
Maybe it's for kids in a way, like and emotionally stunted adults who really want to, and I say that also with some love, like there are things that I deep dive, obsess about, and could talk someone's ear about for a really long time. But it seems to me like a young person's obsession with like, oh, and then this monster versus this monster and this size. And it's got this, I get the appeal of that. But like David, I started watching a YouTube video about like, I think this one was only like the 8 different versions of the Predator, and after like 6 minutes I'm like, okay, I don't care. I don't care. I just don't care. Like it's fine.
But there's so many things where I totally get into it, like a super lore, like the Old Republic on Star Wars. I'm like, oh, open the encyclopedia and just flood my brain with that useless shit. I love that. Like or like Marvel, like, oh, and then this is when this character was, and this is a opposite universe of this character. I'm like, oh, give me all of that. But for whatever reason, I guess like I feel like because it's like a slasher, right? Like it's kind of like a slasher, and like I don't want to know what I don't want to know the curse of Michael Myers or whatever. Like I don't want to know his like supernatural powers. I just want him to kill some motherfuckers. And
because it's like that's the horror thing is like familiarity breeds contempt. It's like the more you know about a monster, the less scary it is. And the whole point of these monsters is that they're scary. And so reading or like listening to an hour about their whole history, it's just like denuding all the scariness out of it.
And it's funny. I think Predator really crosses genres in a lot of ways. Like when I think back to my dad showing this to us, like he wasn't a huge horror fan, but boy, like we watched Running Man, Commando, action movies. Like he really loved action movies. So this one was like action, but then the horror comes in. So that's how it got him, and I think it's a nice, and then after that, like he started watching a few more horror movies until, he showed us The Thing, and I cried at the dogs. And then he's like, okay, you're too young
should have gone
this.
to that website, Theresa.
He really, I know, right? Back in like 1987, there was no website. He probably should have watched it first before he showed it to his 2 young daughters. Once, and we were pretty hardened by then, but yeah, the dogs, no. That was a hard out for all of us, and my dad was very apologetic. So again, I feel like, being able to watch Prey and know that the dog does in fact live, I couldn't take my eyes off of him. That adorable, happy, like, I don't think he was the best actor. I feel like every time he was supposed to look scared, his tail was wagging, and you could tell they were kind of like keeping it out of frame. But I'm like, I love this happy little dog. Like, probably because he was just looking at a green screen instead of anything horrifying. But I just thought he was the happiest, cutest, most lovable dog ever, and I want him.
Yeah, I love that dog. He reminded me of my dog because he has like a really similar face and like nature to him. And so I was like looking up all I could about this dog, and apparently, I don't know how true this is, but he's an American dingo, which is like, I guess, kind of like a American wild dog, or like more of like
is that like a Carolina?
Carolina dog.
Yeah, Carolina dog, which is probably like maybe as archaic of an American dog as maybe you could get, at least in today's breeds. But it wasn't trained. Like, it wasn't an actor dog, and it was like they adopted it for the movie. Yeah, and they were saying it was like it was a terrible actor, but they loved it. Like, it was just they had to do so many scenes with it over and over again because it was just a terror on set. But yeah.
Well, I'm so happy they didn't like burden her with a wolf or something. I think that would have been pretty stupid.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah, I thought it was really cool to use that breed of a dog. And a rescue
that was nice.
Makes it nice.
Yeah. You mentioned the Thing, Teresa. I would like to see the Predator against the Thing. I think that'd be a fun matchup.
Oh my god.
Oh, it would be a perfect matchup.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's where the Alien versus Predator. Oh, that would have been great at the end of that. Like, they're all in Antarctica. And they go to like Outpost 31, and they're like, what?
And then we see the T-800's boot come down the ice. Like,
sure, add them all in. Why not?
The ultimate showdown of champions.
Okay, you're selling me on the WrestleMania of these 80s movies that I don't have nostalgia for. But
so actually, one other thing I wanted to mention is that, like, I had kind of forgotten how much of the movie, going back and watching, especially Predator and Predator 2 and stuff, how much of the movie is like from the Predator's point of view with the infrared camera and the clips of the audio playing over and over again. And I don't think I either never really got this or had sort of forgotten that, like, because I was watching with the subtitles this time to make sure I was understanding everything. And so at the end, when the Predator of the original movie, when the Predator sets his little like mini nuclear bomb or whatever, and he's laughing, and according to the subtitles, he's like playing back Billy's laugh from earlier in the movie. And I'm sure I never
taunt him.
I'm sure I never like made that connection before. But I thought that was kind of cool, like that it almost makes the Predator seem like a stalker or like a voyeur or something. The way it's
that's
like always
what was so great about it. Yeah, I loved it. It would use like Mac's voice. Yeah, I forget if it was like Billy's laugh or Mac's laugh. I love Bill Duke. I just want like a special moment to be like when I, watched it again. Like, I never remembered this scene where Mac basically like has like this terrible PTSD and has this soliloquy to the moon, which I thought was really haunting and wonderful. I'm like, where the fuck did this come on? No one remembers this shit. They remember you are one ugly motherfucker. I ain't got time to bleed. But then like this weird little moment of Mac and the moon, I thought it was wonderful.
That was cool. Yeah. Also, I just want to mention in Predators the scene where the drug cartel guy has been killed and his body's sort of kneeling.
Oh yes, Danny Trejo.
And they put a bullet in him, and then he's still talking because it's the Predator imitating. That is such an amazing scene to me.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, but it was making me think like there is something sort of like artsy or avant-garde about how much of these sort of like action movies are this like infrared camera imagery and stuff. I wonder if you could, that would be really intense, is to have a whole movie that's just the infrared.
Oh, no.
I don't know if I could do that. But I wonder if in like 87, it was like, you know, the CGI of the day, like, ooh, we could show a movie in infrared scenes. Like all that stuff was like hot shit back then.
Yeah, like the first time I saw that trick, I guess, was in Wolfen from '81. You know, we see through the Wolfen's eyes, and they can also see in a similar way like that. Yeah.
No, I think that was hot shit back, because even like the box of Predator, it's just like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but it's kind of pixelated. And back then, you're like, wow, this is some fancy stuff. There's like pixels and stuff.
Yeah. You know, if I don't know where I picked this up, a book or a documentary or where, but when Jean-Claude Van Damme was there for, you know, the 2 weeks or however long he was there, they had him in that red ant head costume running around the forest, and he thought that was the final costume. He thought that's what the monster looked like, but they were using red because it was the opposite of green, which the jungle was, and they were that was how they were achieving the cloaking, you know. And so I always heard that was a big reason for his dissatisfaction, was he didn't want to be like a classic Trek alien, you know. He wanted to be something real and scary.
I think he called it like a chicken suit or something, or rooster suit or something.
Yeah,
like that.
well, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I forget if the early design of the creature had like those backwards kind of chicken legs, or if or if that's what they ended up adding, which, you know, again, I think it's cool.
Am I understanding you right that the suit that he hated, that he trashed, was just to do the invisibility?
Correct.
Well,
I think so.
Right.
There was a red ant head that he did allegedly destroy, but then there's other conflicting first hand accounts. But yeah, the article said it was like a $20,000 head that he said, this is stupid, and like threw on the ground, and it busted. Which is just hilarious
a lot of
to me.
mythology around the filming of the first one too. I mean, like, I went to the Wikipedia article, and now I'm like, I have to go down this rabbit hole. But apparently, like, the actor that played Billy Souls, what was his name? Sonny Landham.
Sonny Landham, yeah.
They had to have a bodyguard on set to protect the rest of the cast from Sonny.
Wow.
Like, I heard, like starting fights, and I don't know, like, I'd be very curious to learn more about that. Like, it was like a little line in like the Wikipedia entry, like some little interview, like they had a bodyguard on set that was just to keep him from hurting himself or any of the other cast members.
Wow. I like him even more now.
Right.
Yeah, I like that energy. Great energy, right? for filming.
I know. I mean, and that character didn't seem very like chaotic in its own way. So I'm like, he's a good actor then.
I just want to mention this scene from Predator 2 that I really liked. Was this scene? There's this King Willie character, and he gets killed by the Predator in the alley. And just before he dies, he says, I just looked this up. He says, his foundation lies in the holy mountains, Selah. And there's just like something about that. It just kind of like gave me chills watching it. Just that quote. I don't know what that means.
It's got to be from something. I don't even know what
it's
it's
from. Psalm 87:1 is where it's from, but I don't know what that's a reference to exactly.
Well, he's Jamaican, right? Like,
apparently it's a Rastafarian thing.
Yeah, it's a Rastafarian thing, which I thought was like interesting. Like, oh, the dreadlocks. Look now. Fighting the Predator, but I'm like watching it kind of like cringy and just being like, oh, just everything about this is just kind of weird now.
But
weird.
I do love how he interprets it as a spiritual demon. You know, that's a really cool, like, that's how people would react. Like, if they saw super advanced alien technology killing people, they'd be like, oh, this is like some spiritual creature killing us. I thought that was cool. And I want to see more of that kind of thing, where it's like people are wrong about, you know, they don't just interpret correctly that this is an alien from outer space. They're like, oh, this is like, you know, a whatever.
Yeah, I mean, well, in Prey, like when she sees the ship and she's like, oh, I had a vision of the Thunderbird and stuff like that. Like, I thought that was cool, you know, and it ties it into what you're saying. And that's why I think it'd be fun to see it in other eras. Like, oh, what would what would a Spartan say? Like, oh, this is some creature from Apollo or whatever, or Poseidon, and we're using it, like it'd be interesting.
Yeah, I like. I mean, this idea that everybody's pushing online and everywhere about let's see the Predator in different eras. We do want to see him fight the Spartan and all that. The only issue I see with that is every time the Predator's going to lose. That's what makes a good story is if Dutch kills the Predator. And all that makes me want to do is see the Predator Planet's version of Siskel and Ebert reviewing these movies. How fake they are.
Well, that's an interesting. Could you write a Predator story where the Predator wins at the end, and that's a satisfying? If he's fighting humans,
I think that there was some Predator comic story that did genuinely interest me, where the Predator was attempting to hunt what do they call it? A pilot. I think they're called pilots from the Alien franchise. Those giant dudes.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
that to me is like really appealing because it's like that's like some kind of almost supernatural godlike being that he's like really not equipped to fight and kill. But like it was like about him, like I think getting a team and finding and killing it. So I do want to check that out.
Oh, that does sound cool.
And you could have maybe like a Predator versus like a Nazi battalion.
yeah.
Well, yeah, right.
Well, when
hear me. Oh, sorry.
When he's killing the French, you're just like, fuck yeah, right?
Yeah,
like you're like, fuck these guys. It's really cool when he's doing that. But sorry, Theresa.
It'd be cool. It'd be cool to see a Predator land in Raccoon City.
Well, I'm just saying there is in 2015, and I remember it because their booth was right behind mine. Archie versus Predator.
Oh yeah.
The Predator comes to Riverdale and touches down in the nearby jungle, and basically he kills Archie, and Veronica and Betty are like critically wounded. And then it says, the synopsis, which causes the Predator to show regret since it was motivated by a crush on Betty. And they use like this weird healing machine to restore everybody to full health, and then transform the Predator into the new Archie, who lives his life as Archie in Riverdale.
He's
the Predator. I'm telling, that's pretty great.
I love that.
I love that journey for you, Predator.
Yeah, that's great.
Archie books are great, and I really want to check that out.
All right, so we're almost out of time, so maybe we should start getting into some. Does anyone have any just like topics that they wanted to get to that we haven't touched on yet?
One thing I think the Predator stories that work the best are the ones that are self-erasing. Like the first one, or Prey is pretty much self-erasing too. It'll live on in the tribe's stories for 2 or 3 generations, but it'll go away as well. But I like it when it touches down, fights a lot of people, and the rest of the world doesn't find out about it. That's what I like.
I guess one thing I saw in the comment, I don't know if this came through really clearly to me watching the movie, but some people said there's a lot of hints in Prey that this particular Predator is like a young, inexperienced hunter, and maybe like on its first hunt or something. I wish that had maybe been made a little bit clearer, but I kind of like that.
It would mirror Narrow and her trial.
Yeah, it would. And did y'all watch the pictorial background for the credits? Because at the end you see the other Predator ships come. That was pretty cool too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was great with that. honoring, the victor, which I think is again like that tells you more about their culture without having to say a word.
Yeah,
but maybe more movies in the future could be clear that this is a young, inexperienced Predator, and then that would make it seem like more of an underdog, if it's fighting like armies of humans or something.
No, I totally agree. And what I forget from all the iterations we've seen of Predator, have we ever seen a female Predator?
I think the lore is that they're like 3 times the size of the males. I think there might have been maybe the one that Adrian Brody fought at the end, the giant one. That one might have been a female, I think.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, always a little fuzzy on that.
Yeah,
I'll have to go back and watch the 38 varieties of Predator video games. We can answer that. All right, but yeah, we're out of time, so let's get into some final thoughts. So, Steven, final thoughts on this whole world of Predator
This whole Predator thing. Yeah, my big question at the end of all these Predator movies is what kind of planet did they evolve on that they have those kind of mouths? You know, what kind of little rodents were they running down that kind of mouth helped them eat better? Because it seems to be kind of a senseless mouth to me, like a movie mouth that's cool. Like you see that same mouth on that little fluffy dog in Blade 3, if you remember that. You know?
Yeah. Oh, geez, Blade 3.
Actually,
it's pretty cool.
I did hear the designer for the Prey, Predator. He said that he wanted it to look like, or like in his mind, it was evolved to eat to crack open shells and eat shells.
Oh,
like alien.
Oh, and that. Okay, that makes sense because shellfish, or maybe shellfish on other worlds too, have a lot of protein. They're really high in protein, and maybe that would create a species that's super aggressive like this. You know.
All right, but cool. So how about Zach? Final thoughts?
I want to see more of these lower budget movies and less of these enormous, like the Predator has an enormous budget. I would imagine it's 4 or 5 times the budget of Prey. And to me, what I see there is you could make, 4 Preys. And you get these directors that are experienced with smaller budget films that know science fiction. The director of Prey did that kind of low budget 12 or 10 Cloverfield Lane
10
movie,
Cloverfield Lane, yeah.
which is
great.
Yeah.
It's very very good. I like it significantly more than Cloverfield, and it also has zero budget. So I think that's where I want to see this franchise going. Like we don't need a huge budget because you're gonna kill. I feel like that's what's happened the last couple times. Is like they think they're gonna rake in all of this money, and from what I understand, Predators didn't do very well in theaters, and I know the Predator got shit canned. So I think this is the way to do it. All of my friends watched Prey and they're loving it. And so I think it's done very well for Hulu. And so that's kind of just do it more. I want to see more of these. However much budget you would have done on the Predator, give that to all of these little guys and have them make a bunch of movies.
Yeah. And the Predator I read, I think that they basically threw out the final act of the movie and completely reshot it. So I'm sure that didn't help the budget either.
Wow.
But
I think a big difference is since Prey was streaming, they didn't have to do the same marketing budget you do for a theatrical release. So it started making its money back a lot quicker than a theatrical release, I think.
Yeah, I mean, when it was announced, like maybe a year or 2 ago, it was called Skulls, and it was like very under the radar of what it even was. And then all of a sudden, like a month before it premiered, it's like, oh shit, there's a new Predator movie. What the hell? And it's become, I believe, like their most streamed original film of all time on the platform.
I would have absolutely loved if the Predator was not in the trailer. I would have loved that.
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know if I think that would have been even better, because then people would be flipping their fucking shit. They would be like, oh my God, look what I discovered. Even though, Hulu was planning on this, that's how I think they should have just done some guerrilla stuff and just put it at the top page of every Hulu, everyone who signs in, and then, oh, what's this Prey thing? And then finding out in the middle of the movie that it's a Predator movie. That would have blown people's fucking minds. I think that's what they should have done.
All right, from a marketing perspective, no.
But this has all been word of mouth, though. I feel like it wasn't like I was
the buzz
never
around it. Definitely,
yeah,
definitely. Like the fact that it's good has spread around. I think for me, what makes the Predator kind of endure and be a draw that you would want to put in a marketing material to varying degrees of success, is that I think, because he's this monster that's rather faceless, you don't feel guilty like rooting against him. You're like, oh, let me watch him. He's a guilt-free entertainment of watching like a bad guy stalk and then get defeated at the end. It's a very comforting archetype of a story. And I think what makes the Predator franchise endure is we like seeing that over and over again. But I think what we could learn from Prey and some of the other movies is keep it simple. I mean, textbook writing tutorial, like show, don't tell. Keep it simple, keep it character focused. And you could do this in a bunch of different ways and still have it resonate, because at the core, it's, the Predator. They stalk you. They're trained, and how are we going to outsmart them? I mean, the first movie was really like action guy Wes Craven movie to me. With all the like booby traps are so important to the Predator franchise.
Yeah,
continue that great tradition.
Yeah, absolutely. So we need to wrap this up, but yeah, basically like keep it simple, keep it scary, keep it intense, not too many characters, not too much dialogue, and make it, keep some mystery. So like different kinds of aliens with different kinds of abilities and different settings and stuff we haven't seen before. Don't just like rehash the same scenes and stories that we've already seen. And there could yet be a lot more life in this franchise. Seems like that's the way to go. I feel like we've come up with a lot of good ideas, so I hope some Hollywood people are listening. Know what the people want. But yeah, we gotta wrap this up there. So we've been speaking with Theresa DeLucci, Zach Chapman, and Stephen Graham Jones. So thanks everyone so much for joining us.
Thank you. It was a blast.
Bye, guys.
Yeah,
thanks.
Fun as always.
And that was our panel. So big thanks again to Theresa DeLucci, Zach Chapman, and Stephen Graham Jones for joining us on the show. This episode of Geek's Guide to the Galaxy was made possible thanks to support from listeners like you. So if you enjoyed the show and want it to continue, please support us on Patreon over at patreon.com/geeks or via PayPal over at geeksguideshow.com/crowdfunding. Alright, so that was our show. So thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time.
The Geek's Guide to the Galaxy is a production of Wired.com. For more information about the show, visit geeksguideshow.com. To learn more about your host, visit davidbarrkirtley.com. Music and voiceover produced by yours truly, Jack Kincaid. If you enjoyed this program, tell your friends. If you didn't enjoy it, tell no one. Thank you for listening.